Thank you for your time. Hope everyone's getting a lot of benefit out of this. I am Jonathan Flynn, a solutions consultant with Hitachi Vantara Federal. You probably don't often see Hitachi attending many of these events around AI, and I would like to think that a lot of people often wonder why, with such a large company as Hitachi, where we're some 300 plus companies in pretty much every industry you can imagine. Our sole interest is really in vision is around IoT and these AI modeling and things that we got out there. So we don't do the best job in marketing this out to the community, so we really want to use an opportunity in a forum like this to get the word out on what we do, who we are, and how you can interact with us. Hitachi, everyone I think here is familiar with Hitachi Limited, our larger company on a global basis. We are Hitachi Vantara. We're the IT product solutions and services arm, okay, to Hitachi Limited, okay. Hitachi Vantara Federal, we are located and headquartered out in Reston, Virginia, Reston Town Center, where all of our sales and support staff are located. We have a demo lab there. We're FOCI mitigated to do business with the federal government, and we're also TS cleared facility, okay? So we certainly, most of our customers right now, and our mainstay is with DoD. We also provide services and solutions to civilian agencies as well as the IC as well. So we have full ATOs, we have certificates of networthiness on a lot of our products to have these conversations, and they're very interesting conversations. And what I wanted to also share is I'll do a little background on our portfolio in general. We provide modernized infrastructure as well as data ops software to help you through the whole data pipeline and building models around predictive analytics and outcomes that are important to you and your agencies. But I really want to kind of discuss how the conversations, I figured I would add a little bit as I sit down with different customers. What are some of the insights that I see and hear from the customer that might be interest to you? And okay, I think I'm going to give this a shot here. Yeah, no, okay, I tried. I tried. So I want to give you some insight on some of the conversations I have with customers and how that typically goes and where I tend to run into roadblocks. And I think what I'm going to basically do is parroting a lot of what I just heard from this panel, is that it's all about the data, right? It's all about that input source. When we look at a data pipeline, we're looking at I break it down into a simple conversation, right? We talk about we're ingesting something, some kind of data set into a data integration where we ingest, we cleanse, we work with the data, a data engineer sit down and can do all kinds of magic there. We have a data preparation stage, right, where we're blending unstructured, structured data, very big, large data amounts, not trivial, right? And then we're producing some kind of output or outcome or analytics. Typically in a visualization, or we're pumping it back into another data source to repeat this process, right? And of course, in the middle is where all the cool stuff happens, right? If we go out and we're looking at YouTubes and we're watching all of the latest coding out there in generative AI, that's where everyone's kind of focused right now, right? They want to know what are you doing that's really cool and creative in there? But where the conversation typically gets difficult when I'm sitting in front of a customer is backing that up into the actual understanding of your data, your domain. And I don't know how many CIOs or CTOs I typically sit down with, and I'm like, okay, let's just talk about two things. What is the outcome what is the problem you're trying to solve? Let's just start there. World peace, curing cancer. We could go the limit, the sky's the limit, right? Typically we're doing fraud detection. We're doing simplest things where we have this super powerful tool, data ops tool that can do some amazing stuff. And they basically want to say, yeah, well, I've got some government vehicles and it seems when the receipt comes in, the actual amount that gas that went in the government vehicle does not match the size of the gas tank. What's happening to the other part of that gas, right? Right, you can imagine and I think our data analytics product, Pentaho, and you've probably all heard of Pentaho, does solve a lot bigger problems than that. But this is kind of the mindset, right? And we think outside the box. Let's get a little more creative on what you're trying to solve for problems. And of course, we do things such as preventative maintenance and predictive analytics on naval fleets, okay? So we can save hundreds of millions of dollars in fuel costs just by putting sensors out on these fleets of ships and saying, yeah, something's about to fail in the next certain amount of time, you need to get into port, because nothing's more costly than having a ship out at sea that isn't productive or isn't usable. So we certainly do all kinds of things. FINRA, there's another one that we've worked with in the past to monitor every stock transaction after 2008, 2009. They were looking for something that could process that kind of information, every stock transaction going to brokerage, to make sure that there was nothing going on that was some anomalies there. So we can process fast, and we talk about the V's. I'm sure you all know about the velocity and variety of data and all those kind of things. I want to kind of focus on the C's of the data fabric, and I promise you chocolate isn't one of them. As much as I wanted to make that one of them, they wouldn't let me. But it's really going back to the data fabric and focusing on the content itself, right? The context of that content. Make sure that you have all of the collaboration tools and the connectivity tools in there. So, of course, these C's are not necessarily the end-all and be-all. There's many out there that you need to look at. But what I'm saying is that when I have these conversations, we then put our data scientists in. We say, you've got the outcome we want. We got the where you want to go with this product. But our data engineer and our data scientists sit down, okay, let's start digging into the data. And you typically see CIO and CTOs look at me and they say, I don't know where it is. I don't know, can you help me find it? I'm like, well, that's a big problem, right? And they're like, you tell me where to look. And I'm like, well, it's your domain, it's your data, it's your business. You should understand where that is. And that's where it really gets a little more complicated and difficult. And now when we're talking about generative AI, and as this past panel was just talking about, the massive amounts of data sets now. I mean, this is not even comprehensible on these data sets that we're pulling in and using in public spaces. It's not about your domain anymore, right? It's not about your business and saying, oh, well, I got control of my stuff over here. I could figure it out, right? Well, you should have figured that out quite some time ago, right? And really had. But now we're looking at taking product data managers and actually assigning them to understand their domains within your organization. And that's the way, this is the way things are going to have to shift, is where it's almost like an overlaying HR, right? Everyone within departments is hiring. They're all under the same kind of conceptual, so everything's consistent across the board within the company, no matter if you're working in the engineering department or you're working in a different department. It's going to be the same way with data. When you have manager managing a certain aspect of your company, data is going to be their top priority to make sure it falls under a larger governance or umbrella. And those individual data domains we refer to as data mesh, and those also have to be connected and have to be correlated. Okay, you give me the signal. So now I get to go to my slides. Okay, so I'll try to catch up here. So here we go. I'll just go really quick and try to catch up here. So our headquarters, I said, in Reston, Virginia, right? FOCI mitigated TS facility clearance, some of the DoD customers we work with. OT and IT, over 110 years of experience of OT, operational excellence. Okay, we combine that with IT and you have IoT, right? There's nothing more important than us. I wonder if I can pause this. It seems to be on an automatic timer here. But these are all of the areas in which industries that we actually produce products. So when we say data is in our DNA, we produce the products that make data. And you can imagine, right? I mean, I joked that my toaster the other day asked me if I wanted it to put peanut butter or jelly on my toast, before I went to the toaster. But that's the direction we're going, right? So you'll often see that, our Hitachi windmills in the energy sector. I'm just going to give some examples. MRI machines in the healthcare industry. Smart city. I don't think a park bench goes in with some kind of a air monitoring sensor, or a light pole doesn't go up with some kind of video camera on it now, or weather device to monitor. I mean, these are the kind of things that we're driven towards. We just won the rail system in DC, so we have manufacturing going on with the new rail cars. So going to be Hitachi Rail now in DC, the metro. Bullet trains. I'm going to have people asking me for infrastructure, data storage. They're looking for a hard drive, and yet they're dealing with a company that makes bullet trains. Pretty cool, right? So we have a notion what we call one Hitachi, where we can dip back into all of this engineering, right? All of this data and the software that's going on, software development, and really help you in the government, because all of this correlates, right, to the agencies that I speak with anyway. So as far as our portfolio and overall capabilities, okay? I usually start at the bottom up here, okay? And the bottom up, we start by talking about modernizing the infrastructure, okay? I'm sorry, this is kicking forward on me. So at this bottom layer here, we don't want to leave out the importance of the hardware infrastructure, and now everything's kind of going software defined as well. I don't know if there's a way to pause these slides, but they're going to keep jumping forward on me. But starting down at this bottom layer, right, we provide enterprise storage, whether it be block storage, file storage, object storage. It's going to really irritate me. Sorry, do this for humor. And then the middle layer here, we want to marry that together with our data ops tool. So these are typically two different conversations, two different people we're talking to, but we really want to have this conversation together because one drives the other, right? Where you put your data, your AI workloads and ML workloads on what kind of infrastructure really matters. And we want to make sure we're taking that into consideration. This is something Hitachi can help you with. And we ultimately want to get to this top tier, which is outcomes. We want to have data-driven outcomes that are really meaningful to you here. Give you an example of one of the products. I'm just going to go back real here before I get into Pentaho. Is we have an HCSF system now that we're just POCing for a large EV company. You can guess some of the largest EV companies, and some of their training algorithms they're running. We went from 40 hours down to 4 hours just with the hardware we put in place. So what we're doing now is we're partnering with people like NVIDIA, and if you've heard of WECA, parallel file systems, we partner with them together to give you the best of both worlds, parallel file system in both file and object storage, okay? So we go direct using distributed file system, direct to NVMe drives, SSD drives. There's no more CPU processing. There's no more copying the data here. Sometimes they say to process a workload, sometimes takes up to 7 or 8 different copies of the data. We eliminate that all with this new hardware infrastructure. So when we start to get into these massive AI, high performance compute workloads, we have the answers for that. And we marry that to our analytics software as well. So now, I want to concentrate a little bit on this middle section because I think it's more pertinent to you, Pentaho. If anyone here has worked with Pentaho, any hands have heard of Pentaho at all? 1, 2, yes. Open source framework, been around for 15 years or so. We purchased them about 8 years ago. We bought them to actually integrate and drive the analytics in our IoT platform, okay? But it stands alone as itself as a big data integration and analytics platform, okay? And it does a very good job at the data integration piece and blending big data, large data sets with structured data as well. So when I have my conversations, typically I usually start at the basics, right? And I know a lot of you are going to say, oh, yeah, okay, the data pipeline. I've seen this a million times. But this drives so much conversation, so many conversations, because when someone's going out there to look for big data analytics tool, an integration tool, they often don't break this down and understand that there's really can break it down into 3 different categories, right? Like I said, data engineering, data preparation, and analysis, okay? And within each one of these, you can go into great detail and discussions about how do I want to do each one of these? How do I want to validate? How do I want to cleanse, shape the data? How do I want to enrich the data, orchestrate it? And then there's a million visualizations. There are many products out on the market right now that may do one of these really well. One of these categories well. They may do 1 or 2 really well. But what we provide is an end-to-end approach, all the way from the ingest, data in, all the way through the pipeline to the data out. And we manage that very effectively, okay? So if you're looking for a tool that's truly end-to-end, Pentaho can do all of this and do this very well. So I often want to, because a lot of times I get other products mentioned to me, and what they're being sold on a lot of times is this end piece here are the fancy visualizations and the graphs and the pie charts. And yeah, that all looks good in turn, but I truly believe the most important is exactly what this panel was talking to earlier, which is this section right here, before any of this even starts, where a data engineer goes in and says, okay, if I'm gonna get to an outcome that really matters and is truthful, I need to trust this data that's coming in. And if you don't have good control of this up front, then all of this, you can do all this fancy stuff in the middle here and get all cool. It's not going to do you any good. So I want to make sure that you're asking the right questions when you're looking for a big data analytics platform, that it's truly a platform and it's providing you all of these capabilities. Now, if you're already very happy with your visualization tool, we can do this piece because we're open API, we're open source. We can certainly plug into any visualization tool or data integration tool and pick up any gaps that are missed in this conversation. And then we usually so what does this look like from a product perspective? I'm just going to build this up. So we do this in an intuitive way. A lot of people say, yeah, that's all great in concept. I get a data pipeline. But what does your product actually look like? And how does it do it? Okay? So what we do in a very intuitive way, you don't have to be a coder. Okay? And those people like laughing, saying, I'd like to code. I like to do Python all day long and all these things. But what we try to do is we take the non-coder and give you the ability to do really cool things by producing over 300 transformation steps straight out of the box. Okay, already pre-loaded for you. All you need to do is take this, what we call a palette, and create a data transformation. So from left to right, you're simply dragging and dropping these steps, transformation steps, and building your flow from input to the cool stuff to the output. Okay, and it's really as simple as that. These sets are always being updated. This is open source, so we have a lot of developer community out there that are creating their own sets. They're submitting them, and we're actually putting them in the product. Okay, this is always changing. And then you can actually double click on any one of these individual steps, and you're given parameters where you can tweak these. So you don't need to know how to code this. We're going to actually queue you right up on any one of these transformation steps to show you exactly what you may want to change here. We can also multitask any of these processes as well. So if something's slowing down along the way, we can actually do this 5x, 10x, 12x to speed up the processes. We've certainly done that a lot. And then of course we can visualize as well that output. So codeless, metadata injection, we can do multiple iterations of pipelines and really make it very intuitive and just a graphical visualization of building your pipelines. And we have data scientists to sit down with you and get you up to speed on how to operate this. And again, I said this is all fine and great, and it's wonderful that it's simple to use and intuitive. But again, if we go back to the data inputs, right, most important thing, especially the more these sets are we're creating new data sets. Now it's unbelievable how far we've come in just the last 3 months versus the last 5 years in conversation. I can imagine where we're going to go in the next year. We really got to get hold of this, which is our data fabric, okay? And that's why I start talking about these 5 C's of data fabric. The data complexity is just getting massive. So we talk about content, context, compliance, collaborate, and connectivity, okay? We know garbage in is garbage out. How do you control that? How do you trust that data flow coming in? If you keep these in mind, good starting point. Again, I said this is not the end all, be all. There's certainly other aspects to this, but I think if you're keeping this in mind, you certainly improve your data quality. Okay, you're going to improve the impact on model performance. You're going to address any biases and ethical concerns to some extent, right? And you're going to be in a good shape to prevent any kind of feedback loop as well. Especially when we get into these AI and ML solutions and associated decisions. Everyone's just completely overwhelmed with how do we control this output and make sure that it can be trusted. So I would say start with this. This is a conversation I think that people need to start thinking about and having more outside of the cool stuff. And I mentioned this, these data product owners. I think to manage a data fabric here, we can just see the complexity here of everything you have to keep track. If we're going to truly manage, operate, build, and serve across this idiom here, we really need to make sure that we create these data product owners within, okay? And I think that's these domains to manage these data meshes within the data fabric are going to be critical. It really needs to start today, sooner the better. And this is an age-old debate. Let's have a few minutes here. But an age-old debate, should I be on-prem? Should the architecture be a hybrid form? Should it be cloud or multi-cloud? And the answer really is it's a combination of all of these, right? And this is what we do on a daily basis. When I say marry infrastructure to your data ops solutions, we know exactly what type of data, whether it's structured or unstructured, where it should go, and how to separate that. But, it isn't one cloud solution. You may want to orchestrate across multiple clouds. Okay, you can start thinking that way. So is it going to be AWS? Is it going to be Azure? Is it going to be Google? Is it going to be Oracle Cloud? Where am I going? Which one should I pick? You're going to end up picking multiples, okay? And you're going to have stuff on-prem that cannot go in the cloud. We can help you figure that out. We can help automate that process through policies, right? What really should go up there and what shouldn't go up there. And especially in the federal space and some of our customers, that is critical. So I talk about helping you run source data. All data isn't equal, right? Where it ends up in a target, structured, unstructured, how we can virtualize this data to put it in the right context. Object storage, we have the top leading object storage in the industry today, okay? It's all about metadata, okay? It's the information about the file, okay, that we are searching, we are indexing. We can provide a lot of information, and that's what's driving our data fabric today. So let us help you figure out where the appropriate target is for this as well so that you can operate correctly. Just have another minute or so. Integration platform as a service, iPaaS. So I think this is kind of where a great place to be, great place to get to. This certainly provides and orchestrates standards and consistency and performance across your data platform and your data fabric. But we really want to bring real-time data integration right to the mix, or in data-driven operations. But most importantly, I think on this list is overcoming existing and prevent new data silos, right? That we got to get away from these data silos. So when I sit down with the organization and have these conversations with our data engineer and our data scientists, that you have some kind of control and structure around your data, that at least in your domain, okay? The whole public domain is another whole nother caveat, but you should really be getting hold of that to get control of that. And of course, data governance is always a topic of discussion. And we want to make sure we always have built into your data ops product is role-based access control, data lineage, regulatory compliances. I mean, with these never do we not have these conversations. And then metadata management is very important here, right? As I mentioned. Data mesh versus data fabric. I think we all know, right? We can envision that data mesh decentralized, think bottom up, think edge, right? Pulling data in from the edge. And then data fabric, more of a centralized, top-down, single source of truth, okay? These are not mutually exclusive, right? So data mesh within the data fabric, think that way. I think everyone has this concept, but in the data mesh, that's what we talk about, these data product owners, where everyone has a responsibility for their domain, and they're still interconnected and part of this larger data fabric mix here. It's another visualization of all these data domains with their cross-functional teams, all providing input into a global governance and open standards. And so key takeaways here about data fabric, okay? So data fabric, it's a concept, it's not a product, right? When we talk about data integration, we talk about that data pipeline, right? It's a framework, it's not an architecture. It can help you with architectures, but we just want to understand where data fabric sits in the mix here. What is the role in data management, right? It's the single source of truth. We want to use metadata because metadata increases the value of your data assets. Okay, I think my time's coming up. And I'm just going to, and if you establish these here, right, and manage this chaos, you can then focus more on the solutions and the development and all that cool stuff. But you gotta really have control of your data fabric first, okay? Okay, in closing here, we have a virtual series, Hitachi Vantara Federal. We have a couple events coming up here where our data scientists and data engineers get on and they discuss different data points. So if you're interested, we call it Talk Data to Me. And it's been very popular so far, and we just picked different topics. We talk about data cataloging, e-discovery. If you see one out there that interests you, please sign up and register and hop on, and we'd love to have that conversation with you. And please follow us on all these social media that you see here. So I apologize for the slide mix-up, and I hope that was valuable. Thank you.